Yeah, so I forgot to hit the record button, but here we are now. So anyway, I had great results with the hingeback tortoises. So I have two eggs that were just laid by one female, and I have another female that I have a camera on right now who's just nesting as we speak. I don't know if she'll lay today or sometime here in the near future, but um, so that's two of the three females that are in there that are presumably going to lay eggs, which is really great. I have no idea if they're good. I'm guessing so. That they've been mating like crazy for the past 2, 3 months or so. So it's really good news. It's been a really, really long road with those, getting those things because they were in really rough shape when I got them. So I had to do a lot of rehab and a lot of just like getting them back up to speed. This is the first year when they've really kind of taken off and just seem like healthy, well set tortoises. So I'm really pumped about that. Um, I also have a trio of Tunisian Greeks that I didn't get. They didn't get them that long ago, but they've really started to ramp up and pick up their momentum. They're eating really regularly. They're active. They're feeling heavy. They're gaining weight. And then just the other day, I caught the male just like trying to mount both of the females, and he was also doing the shell ram where they like hit each other with the shell. So funny. I will never not laugh. I will never laugh as hard at anything else as I laugh at tortoises. Like they're the funniest. They're the funniest animals alive. Uh, and and so then also a buddy, good from my friend David, sent me. I got five baby Moroccan tortoises, which is another Testudo greca moroccensis, I think. So I'm kind of opening up the tortoise part of what I do. I have I was able to pick up a new male Xenagama at Tinley, which was really freaking sweet. Really happy to add an unrelated male to that crew here. And then I've started to see a little bit of breeding activity from my butterfly agamas, which is really interesting because I have an adult pair and then I have a group of youngsters that are like, I don't know, that say small, like large juveniles to subadult size giant butterfly agamas that I got them earlier in the year and I've just been raising them. And I have the ones that I have left, the male has been chasing after the females and trying to copulate, which is really, really cool. I would love to hatch those. That'd be amazing. Those are super cool looking lizards. Really, really, really cool. And then I also found two uh, baby San Esteban Island iguanas. I think they're females, and so they're intended to breed with the male that I have whenever they're mature. But I'm really happy to have those. They're in great shape. I got them from this guy Curtis in Arizona. It's beautiful. If you don't know the San Esteban Island spiny-tailed iguana, you got to look at these things. They are unbelievably cool lizards. They're so beautiful. The males are like it's like a spiny-tailed mixed with a granite chuckwalla. They're just gorgeous, black and white, beautiful, beautiful spiny-tailed iguanas. So got a little headway on that project, which is really nice. And then what am I missing here? Um, a bunch of it, like all of the babies, the ornate babies that are still around that hatched this summer are now starting to get big. They're all growing really, really fast. A bunch of the males are starting to get color. The females are starting to look really nice. Um, a lot of cool stuff going on here that I'm really extremely happy about. It's so nice to feel progress in some of these things. Um, I also let me just I want to talk about Tinley a little bit because I found that to be fun and educational. But maybe before I talk about that, does anybody have any questions at the moment? Just anything they want to get off their chest? It could have to do with anything about reptiles. It doesn't matter at all. If you do, go ahead and just hit at any point during the chat, you can just hit the reaction button and then raise your hand. And I'm happy I'll stop in the middle of what I'm saying to answer a question, just FYI. So if you want to, go for it. Um, and if not, I'll just keep rambling on. So another cool thing is Tinley, right? I'd never been to such a major show, large one, and it was really, really interesting. I'm told it was a little slower this year than previous years. I have no a way of knowing because it's the first time I've ever gone. I went with Josh Marquis and chilled out at his table, and he was hawking the lavender albino J Rye, which was great. It was super fun to go and participate in that and learn about that. And also, I got to compare because I have my lavender albino from him, and it's bigger than all the ones he was raising up that are the same age. So that makes me feel pretty good. Got him. But let's see. But some of what I really enjoyed about Tinley, something that I learned, is that I had been kind of underestimating the size of the reptile world, herpetoculture. Like I feel like I'm doing this all the time, you know? Uh, I just kind of got a much more immediate visual confirmation that herpetoculture is so much bigger than I realized. And I feel like in my head, I kind of objectively understand, okay, there's like a multi-billion dollar a year industry. There's a lot of, it doesn't take that much investigative thought to think about how large the economy within herpetoculture might be, because it has to be a certain size to support the number of producers that are in the industry, right? So it just stands to reason that it's a substantial market. But I just always underestimated it. It's just something so different when you put a visual to it all, and you see people with just millions of dollars of reptiles just at the table. You're like, holy shit, this is a crazy. It's just wild. Um, you get to see some really beautiful stuff, some cool stuff. It was great. I really thought it was well worth it. I got to meet Tommy, so I know Tommy here, and he and I got to meet face to face. That was super cool. Um, yeah, so it was a great time. I'm always floored by those kinds of things and what I learn. I really hope this tortoise lays her eggs today. She's digging on camera right now, so I'm really that would be super fun. But she probably won't because that's the way it always is. Um, okay.
So, can I ask a question about the
That's
tortoises? Do you
hell yeah, absolutely.
what's the care like for them, and do you sell the tortoises? I'm asking because my 15-year-old son that is, you know, he's extremely mature for his age, so I would not mind giving him a pet. He's highly responsible.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't. My knowledge on tortoises is limited. I
Hmm.
did tell him to research, but in the process, I haven't done that yet.
Sure, sure, sure.
Again, because I could count on him to do it, but I still,
Right.
since you have them, can you tell me a bit about
Sure.
them?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I should caveat this with just the pretext that I'm still very much learning about tortoises. They are not, I don't know, I'm still like a super mega white belt with tortoise nomenclature and understanding. So I'm still very green to this. But so I have three species, two species of Greek tortoise and one species of hingeback tortoise. So the hingeback tortoises, so I've never bred these tortoises before. This is the first time I've ever done it. If these first two hingeback eggs hatch, I'm probably going to hang on to those. But if this clutch that this female lays right now, if she lays a couple of good eggs and they hatch too, I won't be able to keep them all. So I will definitely sell some at some point. If I ever breed the Greeks, I'll sell those too. Um, but so the hingebacks are a little bit different because they are from South Africa, like in Mozambique, I think Kenya too. Sort of, I forgive me if my geography's off there, but that's where my memory reminds me that they're from. I think I said South Africa. That might not be right, but I think Mozambique and Kenya and that region. I think that's right. I think I'm mixing up the crag lizards with the hingebacks. Anyway, um, but also I know South Africa is like a massive country, so I'm not sure. At any rate, they are. My understanding is that so much of their natural habitat is fragmented with farmland now, like a huge percentage of it, and so that's kind of limiting their ability to reproduce and migrate as they would normally. These things are similar to Euros in a few key ways that I like. Sporadic importation; they're not brought in all the time, and very small numbers of people who are working with them and working with them successfully. So if you guys haven't noticed, this is kind of my theme. I really like stuff that's present and around, but people aren't, not a ton of people are working with them. That's kind of my thing. So I really like that stuff. Um, Anyway, their care is a little bit more akin to a box turtle. So if you've ever kept a box turtle, right? You're
Yeah.
basically that's basically what you're looking at in terms of the care for that hingeback tortoise. Most of the time they're eating chopped up greens, zucchini, yellow squash, mushrooms, but they also eat some animal protein. So mine will eat everything from superworms to grubs to earthworms. They love Man, we gave them thawed quail chicks. They loved those. They went absolutely ape over those things. They loved them. Um, they're super cool. The ones that I have are wild caught, so they took a very long time to settle in. My understanding is that as captive bred babies, they're pretty bulletproof. They're very, very low maintenance turtles because you you keep them basically with like a small amount of burrowing substrate, so like repti or topsoil, coconut fiber mixture. You can cover that with like cypress or cocoa chips. Um, and then you give them like little curved hides and things to get under, a food and water bowl, like a low level UV light because they spend a lot of their time in like dappled lighting, kind of in like the tree undergrowth. But they have some variability in the kind of habitat that they'll inhabit in the wild. So they'll sometimes be, what would almost appear like a semi-forested areas all the way to like prairie scrubland. So you see a lot of variety in their natural habitat. And there's people who keep them outside in Arizona. There's people who, so they're really, really, they're pretty actually pretty resilient little tortoises. But they don't like super hot basking. So during the summer
Yeah,
times, we don't even turn the basking light on. We just leave it just the UV, and then it gets warm enough inside the shop. So we only have the basking
right.
on for them maybe six months a year, 7 months a
Do they
year.
get large?
No, they're only about this big. So like they're about the size of a box turtle, like a little bit bigger than a box turtle, just a little tiny bit. So they're, you know,
Oh, okay.
yay big, like not very big at all. And they're super sweet little tortoises. They're so cool.
I
They've
was gonna ask about their personality and their intelligence that you've
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah,
Are
they're
they
brilliant.
pretty
Yeah.
smart animals?
Yeah, very much so. They're very smart. Most tortoises, a lot like lizards too, are really responsive to routine. So they're very good at figuring out when you're going to be around, when you're going to bring food, when you might change their water, all that stuff. They're very aware. And all of
Okay.
the hitchbacks will come out every time we are filling their water bowl or we're putting food. They'll just come out and they crawl out and they're like, hey, they're really funny. Super interesting little tortoises. Pretty low maintenance and they live a while, they're really cool. I like them. They're a cool, and they're beautiful, actually. The Hinchback tortoises can have quite lovely patterning on their shells, so they're really quite interesting tortoises. The other two that I have, so the Moroccans, I just got those. So like I got nothing to say about those things yet because they're just babies. They're so cool. They're really cute little things. But the other ones, the Tunisian Greeks, they're also super cool because they're a slightly small, they're not a very big tortoise. Some Greek tortoises can get pretty big, or big, not relative to a sulcata, but like relative to a box turtle, they can get pretty, substantial. Not huge, but like big-ish, right? And these little guys, the male, he's like this big. He's like a full-grown adult, and he's like this big. He's a small, just a little guy. The
What?
females are about double, like maybe 1.5 to 2 times his size approximately.
Yeah.
Um, but
What's
still
their
not.
lifespan like? Is it
Oh
a
man,
long lifespan? Is
yeah.
their care intricate or fairly
No,
simple like a
no, it's actually
Uromastic?
no. I would say it's easier than a Euro, because they don't. You basically give them shelter, heat, UV, and water and food, and maybe some burrowing opportunities, right? And they're good. They're fine. They're very amicable, very resilient. They eat the same kind of stuff that a Euro would, Uh, And as far as lifespan, I mean, so everybody's going to tell you everything about tortoises, right? They're going to tell you these things will live 100 years. And then there's people who are going to tell you these things are going to live 20 years. Um, from what I'm reading in some of these books, is like, if we're talking about like an unabused, fully happy, healthy tortoise, kept in good ways, that thing can live 60 plus for sure. Like, yeah, for sure. There might be averages in the wild, in this book that I'm reading, and this is mainly about like the Mediterranean kind of Hermans, Greeks, that whole group of tortoises. Um, they're talking about how in the wild they might live slightly shorter lives just on average, right? Like they might get taken out by predators. They might females can get killed by groups of males that are just beating their shells in with theirs, trying to get her to breed. And then stuff just happens, right? Things happen in the wild. So the average lifespan might be a little bit lower, but the full lifespan potential is a little bit different, if it's captivity versus wild, well cared for, not well cared for, et cetera, et cetera. So if you get a tortoise, I mean, plan to leave it to your kids, like that's what I like that's what I'm thinking
Okay.
behind. Like my son will inherit my tortoises. It'll be great. I can't wait to,
Right. So
right?
ideally, my son at 15 years old should be able to keep his
His whole life.
tortoise if it was kept well
Yeah,
for the rest of his life. Okay.
absolutely.
All
Um,
right.
but you know, anytime you have an animal, stuff comes up sometimes. So,
Right.
occasional vet visits, who knows? But they're super cool. Like I'm really happy with them. And it's funny, I've always liked tortoises, right? I even got to see Greek tortoises when I was in Athens, there for a jujitsu camp in like 2012, 2011, maybe. Um, and it was incredible. Maybe 2013. I can't remember exactly. For some reason, dates always elude me. But anyway, I was in Athens and we walked through some of the temple at the Oracle at Temple of the Oracle at Delphi and all these other, when you're in Greece and you walk around, some of the temples and ruins of tortoises just hanging out on the lawn, eating the grass and stuff. It's awesome. It's really cool. And so I've always liked tortoises, but I've always kind of seen them in like the less than ideal pet circumstances. So we had them at the pet shop where I worked when I was a kid, and the tortoises were just a pain. Like they eat with like crazy, and they would shit these huge piles of shit, and we have to clean them up. So I hated that. But I recognize now that like when they're well cared for, their poo's not a problem. They love baths, and they're just it's a great little pet. They're small. They can live really
Okay.
rich lives. They're super cool. I love them.
Are
I've
they easy to clean up after? I know when
Yeah,
I had a tortoise before a whiles back, I was a kid.
yeah,
A whiles back, I remember what kind of turned me off to them is their
yeah.
poop stank to high heaven.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if you're saying they're called ridge. What kind of hindback? What kind of
Oh, the
tortoise?
hingeback tortoises. Yeah. So they're look, poop stinks, okay? Like
Right.
it's gonna smell, but they're not hard to care for. And when their diet is on point and their gut is like well put together, it's not a bad turd at all. It's similar to it's not like a full pellet like a Euro, but it'll be like a pellet patty almost, So
Okay.
it's easy. It's very easy to clean up. It's very easy.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
perfect.
yeah,
And is this something that, so I'm assuming on the size of the enclosure would be how often you had to clean. I'm just trying to like
yeah,
gauge
yeah, yeah.
care.
Yeah, I
Is
think
it something you should pick up daily? Like if he left something, if we got one of those and he left
yeah.
something for a couple of days and
Oh,
he's in the right size tank, would it be an issue?
no, I don't think that would be a problem. We pretty much clean ours almost every day, but that's because we just clean every day. That's what I make. I do it. Brendan does it. I make everybody. He's my employee, right? I make him clean. We clean all the time. But you don't have to do it that way. But you got to remember that these tortoises, they're all housed together. Mine are. So unlike my Euros, I house all my tortoises together right now. And so
Yeah,
there's a little bit more of imperative for us to clean up after them. But if it's just one,
right.
and it's an
And I
adequate
was
sized enclosure, I think it'd be fine.
And that's my final question is then are they solitary animals or are they better off with a partner?
So I think this really just depends. Um, I think that if you had, say, two females and they tolerated one another, totally fine. The hingeback tortoises can be a little pissy. Like the group that I have they just seem like they do just fine. There's no bickering. Um, Not that I've seen anyway. When we split the male, like right now, I've been pulling the male out for to let the females nest, so that without him harassing them. Because he straight up tried to mate with one of the females when she was nesting. It was like, it's like, dude, get out of here. So uh, when we put him back in, there'll be about 2, 3 days where it's a little more chaotic. You can see females trying to like bite him a little bit, but they settle down after a few days and they do very well. The mine do well together, and I know other people's do okay in groups. But I know Jeremy Thompson, and he's the Kinixis king. I would just do everything he says. He keeps his most of the time. I think he's keeping him solo, you know.
Okay.
And so I think I would listen to him if it like it wasn't working currently, you know, and he's open-minded to it as well. He's like, look, you can keep them together. You know, he's like, I just prefer doing it this way. You know, and he gets good results. So I would, you know, you could think of it that way. But if you had more than one, I think it'd be totally fine to house them together if you wanted to. But again, this is all subject to change. Like I'm such a brand newbie with tortoises. I feel like a newbie with tortoises. Admittedly, they remind me of Euros. You know, they're so similar to Uromastyx in some of their behaviors. They're a little like a slow Euro with a shell, is what they seem to me. Um,
Got you.
they're kind of sensitive. You can tell that they're a little sensitive to change. You know,
Yeah.
but once they're stable, once they're like happy with where they are and they're getting in a good routine with you and you're feeding them well, and they seem pretty bulletproof. They're really cool.
Okay.
I really like them. I really like them. But
Okay.
yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, you answered every single one of my questions. Thank you,
Sweet.
Phil.
Of course, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, and actually on that note of like stuff that's a little different but similar to Euros, the more I watch those giant butterfly agamas, the more they remind me of Uromastyx. Like Dave, I don't know if you've noticed this with some of yours, but they are so interesting and they're kind of like high energy Euros. They're like a little jacked up because they're real fast and have a high level of activity throughout the day. But man, they just remind me so much of Uromastyx in the way they run, in the way they're shaped. I have this young male who I'm raising up. I just posted a video of him today on my Instagram where dude, you can just see how he looks like an ornate in the way that male ornates color up. It's like the same kind of progression of color. The banding is super similar. The way the belly color creeps in, the way it just like once it's there, it just starts to erupt. Like, you know, like the whole color creep thing that I talk about with male ornate Euros. It's the same kind of thing. The color just starts once it starts coming in, it's like, whoa, this thing's it's like every day you look at them and you're like, holy shit, this is a crazy looking lizard. And they're beautiful. Like they're just so beautiful. I can't believe, I know they've been imported forever. Like people have been getting butterfly agamas for as long as I can recall, you know? Like when I first got in, they were around. But like I still haven't seen, I'm sure they're out there and I would love to see it if it is, but I haven't seen anybody breed them. I've never seen anyone show like, here's my hatching Leolepis gutata. I'm sure someone's done it, probably in Europe. Who the hell knows? Uh, and they farm them for food in Southeast Asia, you know, because there's like a huge complex of Leolepis. And um, anyway, they're amazing animals and they're so smart. They're kind of like to me, they're a little bit like an ornate Uromastyx mixed with like a small green iguana, like a small one, you know, just like they're that kind of animal and they're really smart. They don't eat as much as you'd think they would eat, right? So it's sort of I feel that way about Euros too. It's like they eat, but they don't eat like a bearded dragon or like a green iguana or you know, whatever you want to call it. Um, they're just they eat a little bit less than that. They kind of what you a little less than you anticipate them to eat, but they're so pretty. Jeff, this is a great question. At what age does the color creep start in male Euros? So this is a wonderful question, and it's not a straight answer. I wish I could say 4 months, like this is when it starts, right? But the reality is it depends on the individual animal. So I have had young male ornates start to show color as early as like 6 weeks old with like cheek color and limb color, like really early sometimes. Now that's the extreme, okay? But I've had some that don't really explode in color where it's where they're obviously males, but they haven't got a lot of color yet. And I've had it go as long as a year or more before you actually see that color. So it's really variable. And just to be clear, that's ornates, right? That's not the same. It's not the case for other species, right? Yemenensis, Thomasii, J. Rye. It's also really variable in those, but I'm sure it's going to be a little bit different from species to species. But with ornates in particular, it can take anywhere from 6 weeks to a year. And then but once it's there, once it starts coming in, it can be really, really fast. I've seen some of those like late bloomer. I don't like to use that term for the animals. I'll elaborate on that in a second. Yes, it is. It's nuts. It's a huge variability, right? So I've heard speculation in the past that some of it's like hormonal, some of it's genetic, some of it's dietary. I'm sure it's a big mixture of things that cause them to go, early, late kind of thing. But it's worth noting that none of and then I see there's other questions coming too. I'm gonna finish this one and then we'll go to Ralph and then I'll answer Tracy's question in the chat. So something I've noticed too is that uh wait, lost my train of thought. Ornates, color creep comes in. It's really variable depending on the species. Oh yes, so I've had some where they look like they've not shown any color. Their juvenile color is still present, and then up until a year, and then bam, like the second it starts coming in, it's like within a week or two, they look like a different animal. It's wild. It can be really fast. But it's really important to note that I have not noticed so far any major difference between the ones that start, like the one that started getting color at like 6 weeks old, he's not necessarily going to be more colorful than the one that didn't start until he's a year. They still seem to have roughly the same adult peak, right? Of course, you're going to have nicer animals and less nice animals. But I don't think like when the color starts it makes a difference. So that's worth noting. Ralph, let's go to you. Go ahead and what's your question?
Can you hear me, Phil?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I'm in a hospital right now, so
Oh
that's,
no.
that's and my dad he had to go in and fell, got 5 stitches and some heart problems and what have you. So it's
Oh
anyway.
man. Sorry to hear that, Ralph. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Anyways,
Sure.
I just want to congratulate you on a big year, marriage, child. I see you have a lot of neat stuff going on. I want to tell everybody too, if they want any merch, I got 3 of your hoodies, a couple of t-shirts. They're freaking awesome, man. Especially the hoodies. The back of the Euro there is so colorful, and
Cool,
it's
right?
so cool how it's kind of. Hey, I have to take this here,
Okay.
Phil. I'll get back to you in a minute.
Sure, no problem, Ralph. Thanks, man. All right, so let's see. I know Tracy. Let's see. Question: My ornate Euro, about 1.5 years, is brumating. It's not coming out at all. Now the issue is I need to move his enclosure, which means emptying substrate. How detrimental will it be to have to tear it down and set it up? Yeah. Okay. So this is a wonderful question. So, a few things you might see here. Okay. So, um, when you move a Euro during brumation, you can do one of two things, or one of three things. One, he's not even gonna notice. He's just gonna go back into hiding. He'll brumate and he'll just come back out whenever he's ready, right? Second option is sometimes when you move them, it can actually kick them out oh, I see what you're saying, Tracy. Yeah. When you move them, sometimes it can actually kick them out of brumation, which is also fine. No big deal. I've done that before. And like, I've had animals that have just been brumating for a while, and then I move them into a new enclosure for some reason, and that change, all of a sudden they start coming out. It might still be a slow progression, but it can kick them out of brumation. So that's also possible. The other possibility is it can really piss them off, and they might just brumate hard for an extra 4 months just to spite you. The reality is Euros can do all of the above. So don't worry, it's fine. What I would do is if you want to ease stress on it, you're gonna take him out, you're gonna replace the bedding, and then when you do that, you reset up the enclosure, just put him back exactly where he was. If you do that, he's probably not gonna sweat it. He won't blink. He might come out and be like a little like, whoa, but he'll probably just find the same place if it was a place he was comfortable, and he'll just go back there and he'll go right back to doing what he's doing. But just know that one of those other options is in the cards too. It might bump him out of brumation. It might make him upset, and he might go back to. He might brumate for a little bit longer, but none of those results are a problem. And I've done that with animals many times, and it's never been a big deal. Um, but as long as you just take him out, put him in a closed container, maybe that's covered up, to let him chill. Then when you do all this stuff with the enclosure, do what you're gonna do. Then when it's all set back and ready, you can put him back in there, and he'll be fine. So you should be no big deal there, Tracy. Um, Let me know if there's anything else. If you want to type more in the chat, go for it. Ralph, let's go back to you, man.
Yeah, I'm here again. Sorry about that. I
That's
think
okay, no problem.
Yeah. Anyway, so anybody wants any merch, you got some good stuff there, man. I was highly impressed with the quality, and they're really nice. So make
Thank
good
you.
Christmas, make good Christmas gifts.
Yeah, that's
Anyway, I wanted to ask you. I have three of your ornates and one the Yemenensis, and they're all doing great. Two of them are down right now. They already
okay.
went to sleep. Uh, the one ornate I wanted to ask you about. All the ornates I got from you are just about 3 years old now, so they should be pretty well there.
Mm-hmm.
The one just never really got big.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a runt. Colorful as any could be, great color, does everything he should be. But I mean, is there anything to that, or what causes that? I just kind of wondered.
Mhm.
I never mentioned it because there was no issue with him. He just never got big like the other ones. He's just kind of like half the size.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So this is a great question. In my experience, those animals still get to be normal adult size. It just, I've had, it's really weird. I've had, you could take 10 Thomasai, for example, or ornates, doesn't matter. You put them in a row, and I'll do this in the small room at my shop. You put them in a row, they're in identical caging, identical light, everything's the same, and you get two that are growing way bigger, way faster than the others, and then two that are slow, right? And what I found is that it just when you roll that time scale out longer and longer, their size gets closer and closer together. So none of those ones that seem like they're going a little more slowly, they so far still seem to reach the same maximum adult size. In fact, great example of an animal here. So I had this group of like six or so ornates that came in a shipment from 2 or 3 years ago, a wild import group, whatever. And I got like a group of six little babies, and I had the smallest little one in that group, tiny thing. I mean, this thing came in like I thought maybe it wouldn't survive because it was so small. It was like a size of a very like a hatchling, like a basically a fresh hatchling, and its claws were caked with poop. Like it seriously was just caked with shit from the group that it came in. And I'm like, this thing's not going to survive, right? That thing rocketed up, got massive, and within a year was breeding size. Not kidding, like huge, huge animal. And she and so then all of the ones that I got with her stayed more like a little more in that normal range where they were like half her size, but they're still big by conventional year-old ornate standards, but they didn't get anywhere near as big as her. Well, this year it's inverted. She's the smallest one of that group, and all the others are like full adult size now. They're huge and they're bigger than her, right? So you can but I still know that she will eventually reach that same adult size. Just for whatever reason, her body's telling her, let's not grow, let's just hang out. And when we're ready, we're ready. I think they're probably responding to all kinds of information that's outside my sphere of awareness, right? It could be something they're smelling from other animals in the environment. It could be hormonal. It could be uh, they're stressed out. It could be they like their enclosure just a little bit less than their siblings. I mean, there's so many ways that could ways to influence that whatever their growth signals are. So I don't know exactly, really, I don't know what causes it. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, I never. It's not a problem at all because I mean he's like I said that three group that I got you there was all about the same time, so they're
yeah,
all about 3 years old now. It
yeah.
doesn't bother me at all. I just wondered if there was something different in the other ones because he the I hate to call him a runt, but I mean I had to
Oh, I
call him a
get it.
runt. I mean, but he's the most friendliest. I mean, all of them are friendly, but
Yeah.
he's like he almost has a personality where he every time I come in there, he comes up and just wants to come right to me. The other ones will come to me and do the same thing, but he's just a little more personable. But it just seemed like he only got about half the size, and but is same color. I mean, colorful as ever, doing
Right.
everything good. I just kind of wondered, because everything, like you said, everything's the same cages,
Yeah.
same decor in there,
It's,
you
it,
know. Oh,
so actually, Dave put something interesting in the chat, which is it's also where you're located. which is true because even in your house, it could just be that his wherever his enclosure is could be 5 degrees warmer or 5 degrees cooler on average than the others. You know, like you never know. Is he, and because he's not just where you're located in terms of where you live, but it also can be where your cage is located, right? So in the room. So if you have stacked caging and he happens to be on the bottom, that could be it too. If you swap them, I've done this a bunch of times where
Yeah,
I've
they're
had.
side by side though. They're not
Oh,
stacked.
see, yeah, see, then that's it won't be it. But either way, sometimes just swapping them, right? So you take as long as you can easily access them, it's not a pain to get them out. Take one out of one enclosure and one out of the other, and just swap their cage for a day. Because number one, this is
Okay.
really good enrichment, and it's gonna because they're gonna smell that other Euro and they're gonna lose it. They're gonna get a jolt of testosterone and be like, oh my God, look, another male, and they're gonna be doing push-ups. It's so funny. So you could do
Okay.
do and just see if it changes any of his behavior. I've done that so many times. It's so funny. I love taking juvenile male ornates. Like the second I split them off from their clutch mates, they get so territorial. They get so territorial. And so I'll try to put them back in, for like a day or two, and they just terrorize their siblings. But those ones, sometimes when I split them off from the group, they'll rock it up in terms of size. And
Okay.
sometimes the opposite happens. But I don't think it's anything to worry about, as you know. And I think
Yeah,
it'll,
I'm not really worried about it. I just
yeah.
was wondering if you ever experienced that at all because I think earlier this year I did send you some pictures. I have mostly uh, yeah, I can't even think now what it's called. Universal rock stuff in there with
Yeah.
the sand, clay sandstone, universal rock. And I think I said I sent you pictures where I put up like the artificial
Yeah.
monkey wood trees,
Yeah.
and as
They
soon as I
look
put
really
that
good.
in, they started climbing up there and everything like that. So
Yeah.
I don't really think I'm going to worry about it as long as he's healthy and doing good and running around. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me really. I just kind of had a question about that. One
Yeah.
other quick question I wanted to ask you is: have you heard any more things about the heat bulbs and what's going on with lighting? Maybe at Tinley.
Oh,
Did you hear anything
oh, you
about
mean
that?
like the halogen
Yeah, yeah.
with the UV. So I haven't heard anything new about the UV thing in Europe. But my current understanding is still that there's a special use exemption. So none of the brands that I deal with directly, whether that's Exoterra, Reptile Systems, Arcadia, Zoomed, they all say like it's no problem. They're gonna have UV lights.
Uh, Okay, I got Arcadia, and then when this came about, I bought a bunch extra, so I'm good
Yeah,
for like 3 years anyway. So it's
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. That one's news to me. I do know that there are some efforts to make I think they're gonna be making these things called eco halogens. So I don't know whether or not this is like I don't think there's any reason I can't mention this, but yeah, so I know that there are these companies like Reptile Systems that's making these eco-halogen bulbs, which is where you'll buy like a bulb that acts just, it's like a halogen bulb, right? It screws into a regular socket. It's got this wide beam and a quartz lens that's going to spread out nice bright white light. And then what they're going to do is they're making these ones where they can the reason it's eco is because you buy like the bulb casing and then the filament thingy, and then when you go to replace them, you're just going to replace the filament thingy and keep the casing, right?
oh,
So
okay,
it's
okay.
really cool. I think that's freaking awesome, and I can't wait. I cannot wait to use those because they're also supposedly they're going to be brighter and last a little bit longer, so, from what I hear. So that's going to be really cool, and because they're an eco halogen, I think this could, in theory, skirt the um the restrictions on halogens.
All right. Well,
Oh yeah,
thank you.
so
I appreciate it.
yeah, of course, Tracy. If yours has them on order already, definitely get some. Like I have, I am going to be receiving some sometime in November, I'm sure. But I cannot wait to try those out because that's a huge change and that's a really cool thing. So, um, I'm excited to mess with those. Really excited, actually. Um, so yeah, that's a great question, Ralph. By the way, your animals look awesome, dude. When you send me pictures of them, they look phenomenal. They're in great condition. So whatever you're
Oh,
doing, just keep it going,
thank, yeah, thank you very much, Phil. Well, like I said, man, I mean, I really didn't do nothing. I mean, you did all the work by reading them, and I follow your playbook, and it's pretty much it's easy.
It's the other way around. You put in the work, right? I just sent you a few.
Well, I mean, a little work, but I mean, since the day I got them, I mean, like you said, I mean, they were already so tame. I mean, all they did was basically learn my system when I come in, feed them lights, this, that, the next thing, and now it's just like routine, like you said. It's just
Yeah.
you produce wonderful stuff, man. So thanks again.
Oh, thank you. Of course. Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah, for sure. Thanks. Tracy, yeah, no, so the other thing I've been using, that same company, Reptile Systems, um has this really cool they call them, it's an eco infrared gold or something. I'm sorry, I'm butchering the exact name, but it's a heat projector. It's an infrared heat projector. And they come in like 200 and 400 watts, like these super powerful heat projectors. And I have two that I'm going to test out because I want to put a 200 watt on my Sarah Hardwick eye just to see what that extra infrared, like ambient heat, does to them, just to see if anything changes. And then what I want to do is I want to put the 400 watt up and have it in the colder part of the shops and just the shop rather, and just use it as like an ambient space heater because they say that the 400 watt, they tested it in horse stalls to help keep horses warm. So it's got to have like big spread, for this infrared heater. So I'm actually really pumped because there's a lot of cool products coming out. Same thing with that Exoterra LED, the Terra Sky LED UV. I've been testing that. Um, and Dave, I'll answer your question in just one second. Yeah. So uh, the LED UV too, I've been trying out. I've had it on an Ornate, and then I've got it on Xenagama Taylor Eye, and then I put a couple of units as just extra ambient lighting plus UV on my Chuckwalla enclosures, just because I always like to. My favorite thing is just adding to existing setups, right? Let me just stack a bunch of crap and see how it works, right? So I just stack all this excess lighting on my animals just to give them brighter, just more light, right? And it's been pretty cool to track the way the animals will bask under certain things because sometimes they'll bask under the halogens, sometimes they'll bask under the LED UV, sometimes they'll bask under a rock where like under a shade where they're not getting any ambient UV, right? And sometimes they'll bask under the UV tubes. So I'm really excited to see what changes when I add these infrared um, uh, heat projectors because I'm just eager to see what they do with that. I think they're going to really enjoy them. And if the one heavy wattage one can help me like eat the shop, that'll be awesome too. And it's the same thing. So these infrared things, it's the same deal where you replace the filament, the bulb on the inside. Filament's the wrong word. I'm sorry, but you replace the unit inside and the whole fixture you buy, and you only buy that once. So it's really super cool. Um, and then, so Dave said, are they dimmable to adjust them? That I haven't checked yet. I don't know. They might be. I think so. I think there's a little, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. And then Tracy, let's definitely talk Chucks because Chuckwallas, you definitely need one. Trust me. So Chuckwallas are super cool. I love them. I've always done well with Chucks. Well, that sounded really arrogant. What I mean to say is, when I have kept Chuckwallas, they've always seemed to do very well in the way I care for them. So I treat them almost identically to the Uromastyx. Yeah, they're wonderful animals. They're so cool. So they're brilliant. They are really smart. They're group tolerant. But I care for them otherwise identically to the Uromastyx. They eat the same foods. They eat that Arcadia optimized 52 tortoise food. They eat that like that's the main part of their diet. I just put that dry in a bowl and I leave it for them almost all the time. I'll let it empty out sometimes. I'll also feed them uh the tortoisesupply.com, the herbal tortoise hay that I use for the Uromastyx. The Chucks will eat that too. So I leave that in most of the time. And then I put in like once or twice a week, I'll just put in like a head of romaine or a bunch of big romaine strips or some chopped up lettuce or whatever. And they go through that, and the Chucks do great on that. And they're beautiful. They're such cool lizards. I've bred redbacks, granites, whitetails. Um, they're wonderful. Chucks rule. So they're super fun animals to keep. They fit right in with the Euros just in terms of the way they're set. And I just like that they're a little more group tolerant, like I love Euros and I'm always going to breed Euros and I'm dedicated. Most of my passion is in Uromastyx, but I have to admit that the difficulty in housing them in groups and pairs can be annoying sometimes. It is what it is, right? It's fine. Um, and some of the species like J. Rye, they seem just slightly more group tolerant too, but I still will house those separate in advance of breeding, because I think, if your goal is to breed them, then you want to make sure that when they see each other, like the first time they see each other after a long time is when you want them to breed, right? Um, yeah, Tracy, you're right. The granites to me, the granite is exactly that's the chuck, right? Redbacks are amazing. Like I've got nothing against redbacks. I've got them. They're beautiful lizards. Um, but granite chucks, for my dollar, are the coolest Chuckwalla out there because they're black and white, and that's just such a beautiful look. It's very unique. I'm partial to black and white lizards. I don't know why. There's just something so pretty about it. As far as how they compare personality to ornates, this is tricky, right? Because my general line here is that all lizards are individuals and they're all going to have real variable personalities. And that said, Chucks and Euros both have the same potential for pet quality, right? They can be very friendly. The older female granite that I have, I don't even, she's not even old. I don't know why I call her older. She just happens to be, she's bred a few times, right? And I have a couple of her daughters that are now breeding size, but she's only like 4 or 5 years old. She's not super old. But anyway, uh, she was wild caught and she is puppy tame. You can pick her up. She doesn't run when you go to reach for her in the enclosure. And she's been like that since the day she got here. So I didn't do anything to earn her trust. She just implicitly was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. But most of them, they're going to take a little bit of time. Same thing with the ornates. They're going to take a little bit of time. If you didn't raise them, they might take a little time to earn their trust. But it's worth it because chucks, just like euros, can live a long time. Chuckwallas can live 25 plus years. So, you know, it's very it's very straightforward. They're not they're 1 or 2 years of building their trust in comparison to a 30-year lifespan is nothing, right? And you're lucky, right? So the ornate that you got from me, he was already like a pretty well developed animal by the time you got him, and he had a lot of interaction with people, so he was really chill. Now sometimes those animals that you raise up and they're really chill, they sometimes the change in homes can kind of throw them off and make them feel kooky. And so they'll go through a short phase of being a little spicy. But the second you, exactly like what Dave is saying, if you don't feed them for 2, 3 days, and then when you put food in, they just come running for you. And then that earns their trust too, because they know, yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for coming, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Um, they start to associate you with food and then they'll learn to trust you as long as you're not reaching in and just grabbing them all the time. They're very easily tameable. You know, Let me see if I can find this. I'd actually really like to cite this in case anyone um, doesn't know about it. Let me find this book. See, um, yeah, this good book called the Green Iguana. It's called Green Iguana: The Ultimate Owner's Manual by James Hatfield the Third. So this is an old book, okay? This is a book that I had years and years and years and years ago, and it's a book on iguanas, right? But one of the reasons I really like this book is because this guy was one of the first people I'd ever seen write about how to, like, in great detail about reptilian body language and how to slowly earn the trust of your animal, right? It's a brilliant book and it's thick. It's like 1,000 pages long. It's incredible. Okay. And it taught me a lot about how, okay, like if you're coming in from above, it's going to scare the shit out of them. So when you show them your hand, put it kind of in front of them and put it a low profile under, a little bit lower at eye level. Let them lick, right? Don't force the interaction, but interact with them on a daily basis for short time frames. And if you do that every day for a year, you will very likely have a well-adjusted, trusting reptile. Now, this varies based on the kind of animal you're working with, and it varies based on the on the individual, because sometimes they might take a little longer, sometimes they might take a little bit less time. But I've always used, that's old school, like taming your iguana knowledge, but it was so useful. I use it with the Euros. I use it with the San Esteban Island iguanas that I've got now. Like it's sometimes it's a slow process. Like the two baby San Esteban Islands iguanas that I have, I got them and they were skittish and they're already running out on our hands to hand feed and they don't mind being touched. But my adult male, who was raised outside in Florida, he's got no patience for me at all. We're just now getting to the point after almost a year of having him where I can hand feed him and touch his back. And he still doesn't like that. He gets like, he'll like flick and he'll try to kick my hand away with his front hands. It's hilarious, right? So he's going to take a long time. He might take 2 more years before I can trust him, you know? But it's little bits at a time will make a huge difference, an absolutely huge difference. And yeah, dandelions will flowers will be your best friend when training an herbivorous reptile. They'll almost all of them will ignore their fear response for flowers. So yeah, that's worth knowing. Um, Anybody else have any questions that they are burning to ask and wanna chat about? Oh, we got one. Yeah, right here. Yeah, Junior, let's go. Oh, hang on. Are you? Let me. You on unmute yourself. You're still on mute. Here. Uh, whoop. I don't know if I can unmute you. I don't know. I wish I could do it for you, Junior. I can't unmute you, but you gotta hit that unmute button, and then we should be able to hear you at that point. But it still says on your microphone, it's got the little red mic with the little slash through it, so I'm sure we'll get it. Oh, uh-oh. I don't think it's working for you. Sorry, man. If you want, you can also type it if you like. That would be also fine. Tommy, yeah, for sure, man. It was great meeting you too, Tommy. That was great fun. And it's totally, yeah, it's a totally massive thing. It's evolved a lot. Uh, is there a nicer guy around than Josh Marquis? Yeah, absolutely. Almost everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Josh is super cool. Yeah, Josh is a really nice guy. He's a good dude. I really appreciate that guy. He's a good person, and I'm glad I know him. I'm glad to call him a friend. Um, oh, you have to give Mike permission in the app in your phone. It's a two-step thing. That's Tracy. I think that's for you, just for Junior. Just so you know, you might have to give the app permission to access your mic in your phone if you're doing it from your phone. So that's possible. Dave, you got a question, homie?
Hey, I do want to confirm. Can you hear me? I'm using the
Yes, sir.
earbuds.
Yes,
So I
sir.
want to confirm that the butterfly agamas are amazing. I
Yeah,
really love them. They're super cool to look at. I think other than like my electric blue day geckos, they're the most likely to get me chasing them around the room because they're very fast
super
and
fast.
they're pretty flighty. I mean, at
Yeah.
least the ones I have seem to be much more intimidated than the Euros, and I've
Oh
had
yeah.
the Euros longer, so maybe that's the deal. But those butterfly agamas seem to go. But I love them. I do have a
Dude.
question about Xenagama.
Yeah.
How how quickly do they mature? I mean, I've read the care guide a couple times. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just wondering what's the timeline on sexual maturity because obviously they're small. I assume they get there pretty quick.
Yeah, sure. So let me just jump back really quick and mention one thing about the butterfly agamas, and then I'll answer the Xenogama question. So the butterfly agamas, mine are also super flighty. Like they're crazy. You reach your hand in the enclosure and they rock it, you know? But I know those things can be super chill because a bunch of those animals, there's video of those things it like there's a guy somewhere in their native range where he's got one that he lets roam his house and the thing tongue feeds bugs all day long. Like I know they can tame down very well. They just they take their time. They remind me again exactly like a green iguana. the longer you spend time with them, the more relaxed they're going to become. Mine have already chilled out a lot because they used to rip the second I'd walk by the enclosure. Now they wait. They'll even come over. I'll put food in and they'll come running over for food. And then if I reach for them, they run. But that's a huge improvement from where they were. So that's just in like 6 months. So they'll, give them time. In a couple of years, they'll be friendly as hell. At any rate, the Xenagama question, and then I'll go here to Junior's because he typed it into the chat. Thank you for that, Junior. So the Xenagama, I've had some of them reach maturity around 8 months, and then some of them take about a year and a half. Hey, thanks, Dave. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining and thank you for being around. Yeah, sorry, Junior. I'm sorry you had some hard time with that, but we'll get to your question. I'll make sure I get it. But yeah, dude, they can mature really quickly. Sometimes as quick as 6 to 8 months. Sometimes as short or as long as like a year and a half. It just depends on the individual and kind of how quickly. But they will grow very quick. I've had some lay eggs at 8 months. Like really early. It was a little trio that I was raising together, and then I have one right now that's like maybe 10 months old, and it's still not big enough. I wouldn't breed it just yet. So it's a little bit variable, but it'll be like within a year and a half for sure. They'll be totally mature.
Perfect. I appreciate it. I
Yeah.
enjoy these as always.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, man. I appreciate it a lot. So let me get to Junior's question here. It says, "What's your take on getting a wild caught Euro and how to bring it to great health?" Yeah, sure. A friend of mine gave me a wild caught Ornate not too long ago. Seems healthy and very active, eats normally. Just wanted to know what other steps I can take to get him 100%. Yeah, this is a great question, Junior. So I mean, the way I feel about it is like wild caught animals are a part of the trade right now. It's part of what it is. So regardless of whether or not your dollar helps to go to another animal coming out of the wild by buying from a pet shop, buying a wild caught Euro from a pet shop or an importer exporter, the point remains that animal still deserves good care and a good home. So I think it's totally okay to get a wild caught one. All of my founding breeders are wild caught animals. It's just the way it is. So, as long as you're giving them a good life, it's a completely fair trade-off in my view. Um, with that said, other than, really just giving him good care, that's going to be that'll do it. If he's getting good care, nice size enclosure, really good heat gradients, good UV, and a good diet, he will become a healthy animal, right? But the things that you're going to want to watch for, number one is you're going to want to watch for internal parasites because they can happen. Internal parasites are a thing. Yeah, yeah, I see him. That's a nice looking little Euro. He looks great. Looks like you got him set up well. He looks healthy. So I think you're in good shape there, Just keep giving him good TLC. If he gets to a point where he's not gaining weight or if he's losing leg or tail weight, then I would recommend getting him to a vet for a fecal exam just to see if he needs like a little bit of panicure or something like that to kind of kick some of that stuff out of him. Occasionally, wild ones will need that, not always. But if you do that, he's going to be well on his way. You follow my care guides, that animal's going to do just fine, right? And just be responsive to him. Make sure he's happy. Make sure if he wants this one thing over another thing, give him that. Just give him time. And as soon as he hits that ground running, when that momentum really kicks in, where he's eating whatever you put in the enclosure and maybe he goes through a brumation cycle or two, he's going to be right where he needs to be, and you're going to do, it'll be great. They're pretty bulletproof when you give them the right stuff and the right setup from the jump. They're very tough lizards. Usually, if they get to you and they don't take off with good care, that's when you know something else might be wrong, and that might be time for a vet visit. And then sometimes those problems don't necessarily crop up until they've been in your care for a month or two, and then some of that stuff will come up later just because it was hanging out in there lying dormant, and so then you could get him to the vet. But as long as he's doing well, just keep him happy, keep that care as consistent and routine based as possible, and he's going to do great, man. So he looks good. So I think you're in good shape, Junior. All right. Okay, so yeah, you're welcome, man. Thank you. I'm glad you could hop on. Thanks a lot. So everybody, so we're about an hour and 15 minutes in. I just want to make sure that everybody got their questions answered. So, oh yes, yeah, I still breed Thomasai for sure, Junior. Yes, I do. You're welcome, Tracy. Thank you. Um, yeah, I still breed Thomasai. I only hatched a few this year, so I didn't have like big numbers this season. But I've still got a pretty substantial colony of Thomasai. I just wanted to give the adults the year off this year, and I had some young ones that were still a little too small to breed. So they're coming up. Yeah, they're a great animal. They're wonderful, wonderful Euros. So I'm hoping in 2025 I'll have better I'll be a little bit more back to my really good production with Thomasai because I've historically produced the hell out of those things. So I'd love to continue that trend next season. This year was my lowest year since the first time I ever did it. So because I had one clutch. But hopefully next season it will be better. Um, but I also want to make sure, like, if anybody else has any last minute questions, shout them out, throw it in the chat, whatever you want to do. I'll give going once, going twice, going three times. All right, that's it, y'all. Thank you guys so much. I'm really, really happy to do this. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy all your time, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Really
Phil.
appreciate all you. Thank you, Ralph. I'll see you guys later. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.